Hello guys, welcome to Study IQ. I'm Safir. In this session, we will continue our discussion on socio-religious reform movements. We started off with it and we have completed two sessions, and in the first two sessions we discussed the two important reformist movements. One we have covered with respect to Rajaram Mohan Roy, the Brahmo Samaj, and in the next session we discussed Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, that is the Aligarh movement. So one from Muslim side and one from Hindu side we have covered with respect to reformist movement. Then there are some minor reformist movements are there that over a period of time I will discuss it. So the two main reformist movements is what we have covered. So when I started, I've told you what are the problems that Indian society was facing for you to easily understand the role of the social reformers. So we have seen some general issues like educational system problem, superstitious beliefs, and then gender discrimination. And then we have seen some specific problem which is associated with certain caste, certain religion, certain region, etc. like child marriage and then female infanticide among Rajput caste and sati, widow remarriage, etc. All these were the specific issues we have seen. And apart from that, we have also discussed what are the types of reformist movement, revivalist movement. Reformist are those people who responded with time and the scientific temper. Revivalist, they consider the Western education or Western style as actually, ruining the culture. So they want to go back to the previous time. So one among that is what Wahhabi movement, something which we are going to discuss today. That is from the Muslim side or Islam side, and the other we will be discussing Arya Samaj in the fourth session, that is in the next session. And then we discussed about Rajaram Mohan Roy, why he is called as father of modern India, his contributions and other things we have covered over there. These are few facts which you need to remember. Atmiya Sabha, Hindu College, Vedanta College, all those things we have covered. And then Brahmo Sabha, and the objectives promotion of monotheism, and he opposed idol worship. And then Sati related contribution we have done, and then his literary contribution, the essay writing on contemporary issues, Samvad Kaumudi, which was the first Indian language newspaper which was published in Bengali language. And just remember this, Miratul Akbar, which was in Persian language by Rajaram Mohan Roy. Don't be confused with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Tuhfatul Muwahideen, again in Persian, by Rajaram Mohan Roy, not Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Later you will see Tahsibul Akhlaq, etc. when it comes to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So there is a possibility that you may get confused with this name when you find Syed Ahmad Khan in the option, if it is given. So then the precepts of Jesus, etc. This is what we have discussed. And then Syed Ahmad Khan, we discussed about Aligarh movement, right? And then Quranic laws must be reinterpreted in the modern context, and we discussed the reason for that. And then we have also discussed about Mohammedan Scientific Literary Society and the objective of that. Tahsibul Akhlaq, we have discussed the magazine. And then Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, and that is one of the most important contribution, and some other literary contribution. So guys, this is what we have done. Please do watch that video. Very, very important, and it will give you a lot of information and perspective about these social reformers and the society at that point of time. Also, when it comes to mains, it is going to help you a lot, and also in prelims as well, some facts that we have covered. So here we will be discussing the revivalist movement. So we will discuss first among the Muslims, that is Wahhabi movement. Okay, so Wahhabi movement. So like I'm discussing the movements in the early 19th century and late 18th century, like that. So there were two types of movement that I have discussed already, reformist and revivalist. Reformist are those people who are responded with time, with rationality, with scientific temper. Revivalist, they want to go back to their tradition. So whether it is Hindu movement or Islamic movement, they want to go back to the tradition. So now 1920 Khilafat movement also was associated with Wahhabi, some connection as there, will be discussing about that. And then 1857 revolt, when we talk about, we will be discussing the contribution of Wahhabi movement and the Wahhabi leaders, which is very important. And in fact 1857 revolt, if you see the Wahhabis role in that, it was much more organized than that revolt. okay, in terms of weapons, in terms of strategies, in terms of the way they fought and everything. And that's the reason why after 1857 revolt, the British started taking Muslims as their number one enemy. And connected to that is what I have discussed when it comes to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, that he tried to convince the British that Muslims are also equally loyal to the British like Hindus. And then with his efforts, you will see later their attitude is changing, especially after partition of Bengal and Swadeshi movement, and they started taking Hindus as their enemy, and Muslim League was formed, and all those things we will be seeing later. So guys, the first thing first, what do you mean by this Wahhab? So Wahhab is actually derived from a person. His name is Wahhab ibn Arabi. So he lived in 18th century Arab, that means now in Saudi Arabia, and he wanted to revive Islamic tradition as in 7th century. So he want to revive Islamic tradition as 7th century Arab. Okay, that means I'm talking about Saudi Arabia. So he started the movement, and he considers some practices in Islam now as un-Islamic. So he want to go back to this period where the pure form of Islam was practiced. So if you see, some of the belief systems and everything have changed. Some new practices has come, like offerings, and all these things were not part of Islam when it was established. So you need to go back to the pure form of Islam. That's what the objective of Wahhabi movement. So the belief is Islam was the best in the form as it was in 7th century Arab. And what is that speciality of that? The Prophet Muhammad and the Caliphs were living, right? So the Prophet Muhammad plus 4 Caliphs who comes after him. So their time is what they are looking to go after. Now guys, you just need to remember this first 4 Caliphs also, that they can ask you, because first 4 Caliphs is very important. Okay, again, if you remember 1773 Regulating Act, I used to tell the Governor General of Bengal plus 4 members. Governor General of Bengal, Warren Hastings, and 4 members, since these are the first 4 council, they will ask you. Richard Barwell, Philip Francis, George Monson, John Clavering. Same way, here you just remember Prophet Muhammad, and after that 4 Caliphs. Very important. And who are they? Abu Bakr, Umar Farooq, and Usman Affan. Guys, my pronunciation may be slightly different than the way you pronounce, but you have to adjust it. And then Ali Abi Talib. Especially when it comes to certain names, North Indian names and Muslim names, etc. Okay, so for Wahhab ibn Arabi, this society, that the 7th century Arab, that society is considered the ideal society. That's when the Islam was practiced in its pure form, and he want to revive that tradition, and he want to go back to 7th century Arab. So that is the objective of the movement that he started. And I hope you understood from where that name came, from that person the name came. So now if you see, there are a lot of changes, a lot of mixing, and a lot of additions have happened in various customs and practices within Islam. So he want to revive that Islam. So people who are influenced by Wahhab ibn Arabi in India, that is Shah Abdul Aziz. Just remember these names, that's very important. Shah Abdul Aziz, a son of Sufi Saint Shah Waliullah, okay, and Said Ahmed. This Said Ahmed is not the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. This is Said Ahmed of Rai Bareli. And later I'll be talking about the Shaheed, and then I'll discuss about Syed Ahmad again later. Okay, so don't be confused with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And one more point that I want to tell is, they have used jihad as their political slogan, and this is for the first time that jihad was actually used as the slogan. Okay. Now, let's look into the objective of Wahhabi movement. So if you see the objective, there are 2 objectives. The first one is, okay, see what we discussed so far is, they want to go back to the tradition. They feel that some of the practices in Islam now have undergone a lot of changes, and in fact it is un-Islamic. And go back to the pure form of Islam. That means, in simple terms, if I want to tell that, there should be reform which is required in Islam. So there is no problem. You can demand reform in your religion. Absolutely fine. Okay, so the first one is reform in Islam or Islamic reform. That means the tradition of Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad is very important, and Quran must be strictly followed. So prohibited offerings at the shrines. So that was not part of Islam actually. These offerings, these are un-Islamic, and it was actually influenced by Hinduism. These offerings at shrines, etc. And these festivals like Shabi Barat, just before 15 days of this Ramzan and fasting start, this festival is there, and they have rejected that festivals and all. So their idea is the tradition of Indian Muslim now, which they consider as un-Islamic, has to be avoided. So it has to be rejected. So guys, if you see all religion, it happens, right? The things which may be written in the original religious scriptures and what is actually practicing over a period of time will be different, have come up with a lot of evolution. It evolved over a period of time, and Islam is also like that only. Islam is also not homogeneous now. Islam is supposed to be homogeneous. Islam is supposed to consider everyone as equal. But when it comes to India, it was influenced by Hinduism a lot. So even in Islam also you will be finding this caste system. There are different castes you will find like Ashraf, Ajlaf, Arzal. So Ashrafs are the top, Ajlafs like middle, and then Arzal, they're the lower level like the Dalits and the Shudras, that kind of people. They are the service providers. And this is not supposed to happen in Islam, right? This kind of hierarchy should not be there. If you remember when I talked about Rajaram Mohan Roy, what he was inspired with from Islam, equality. From Christianity, humanity. From Hinduism, spiritualism. But when it comes to the Islam in India, is it like everybody is egalitarian or equal? No, right? Even in Islam also, caste system is there. Just remember, Ashraf, Ajlaf, Arzal. In case if somewhere you need to write an essay, you can just write it. Okay, so Wahhabis thought that Islam is one and all Muslims should practice one. So, one more thing is there, guys. Different cultural groups are there, and it is very difficult to bring them together. So it's not ended and continued in different ways in different parts. So we will be discussing about all those. So that's the first objective. So what is that? Reform in Islam. That is the Islamic reform. Reform your religion. So first part is okay, reform in your religion. Second part made it controversial and created issues. So what is the second part or the second objective? Establish Islamic rule. Establish Islamic rule. So to convert India as a Darul Islam. So India to Darul Islam. Darul Islam means land of peace. From Darul Harb. So from Darul Harb. So Darul Harb means land of non-believers. So from land of non-believers, you should convert into land of peace. Darul Harb to Darul Islam. So this is the second objective. That means establishment of Islamic rule. So target is basically to convert India from Darul Harb, which is the land of infidels or land of non-believers, to land of peace. That is Darul Islam. And guys, if you see this Islamic State, okay, so what is their objective? Their objective is also the same. So can I say, see, we will be discussing about Wahhabi movement and how it came to an end and everything we will discuss. But something which is based on an ideology which will never come to an end. You cannot end that ideology as such. You can temporarily halt the movement, either with the force or whatever it is. Okay, that means even though I talk about Wahhabi movement, it came to an end, but it will never come to an end because the movement is based on an ideology. What is that ideology? Establish Islamic State. So that is how it has revived the Islamic State. If you see, now let me tell you, in case if you need to write the answer on Islamic State, your introduction should start with Wahhabi movement. So there is a huge influence of Wahhabi movements, or it is actually a modified form of Wahhabi movement is what Islamic State. Because objective you can see and you can connect it with that. So what my point here is, something which is based on an ideology, that is very important. it can never, like Marxism, it will never end. Naxalism, whatever measures you take till the time exploitation and poverty of these poor is there, Naxalism will be there and people will get influenced and people will get into the trap also. Okay, so it is very difficult to bring an end to these kinds of ideology with bullets and guns, with the force, with the laws, etc. Ideology will remain and it will stand and it will revive in a much more stronger form. So that's what you have seen as IS. Okay, so we were talking about Darul Islam to Darul Harb, and they formed Guerrilla Army. I've told you just before 1857 revolt, they were much more organized. They formed Guerrilla Army, okay, and led to direct confrontation with the Wahhabis and the state, means British, so East India Company. And also they fought against Punjab. Punjab was under Ranjit Singh during 1839. So they fought against Punjab also. And in 1830, which is a very important battle, there was a battle of Balakot. So 1830, Battle of Balakot, where Balakot is now, it is in Pakistan occupied Kashmir actually. So the Syed Ahmed of Rai Bareli actually died here, and he is called Syed Ahmed Shaheed. And after the death of Syed Ahmed of Rai Bareli, they have declared the war against Punjab as jihad. Okay, so guys, we will be talking about jihad also later, which is again very controversial, but you should be knowing about it. If you see in Arabic, it means actually struggle. It is widely misused by Muslims and misunderstood by others and misinterpreted by others. Okay, so very much misused by Muslims, Muslim rulers also for their own benefit. Okay, and misunderstood by people, misinterpreted by media. So you need to be very careful when you're writing such kind of terms in your exam and when you're using that in interview. So especially if you see European media write it as holy war, right? Holy war is actually not correct. It is, the actual meaning is struggle, okay, and it have different stages. Like the first stage is fight against evil from within. First you fight against evil from within, and then fight against the evil of society, and finally you fight for the truth, means fight for Allah even if you die. So for the goodness of Allah, for the truth, you have to fight. So that is the third stage. Okay, so jihad literally means struggle, and there are three different stages. So just don't have this understanding, guys. Jihad means holy war and you have to establish Islamic State like that. No, that's not the case. That's not what actually mean by jihad. Understand it, because this is something which I want to tell you, because it has been widely misused by Muslims and misinterpreted and misunderstood misinterpreted by European media and now Indian media also very badly, and misunderstood by people like most of the, even Muslims as well as others. Okay, so Muslims also don't know the meaning. What is jihad? They will think that they will die. That's what the meaning of jihad. That's not the case. Jihad means struggle. It's like what Mahatma Gandhi also did not. I'm not comparing, but just for the sake of making you understand the exact meaning. Once you know the meaning, then you won't fall into such kind of things, right? So if you see why I said it is misused, there was a war in 1529, Babur versus Rana Sanga. So this is the battle of Khanwa. Khanwa is actually a place in Rajasthan, and Babur actually declared the war against Rana Sanga as jihad. So we know Babur is not fighting for Islam, neither for Allah. He wanted to expand his territory only, but he declared this war against Rana Sanga as jihad, because Rana Sanga is very powerful, and Babur army is not that powerful compared to Rana Sanga. So they are facing a defeat. So to motivate the army, he declared the war as jihad. And guys, this religion will work like a medicine. Okay, so that is why that is how he misused it, right? So he basically want to establish an empire in India, not for Allah and not for Islam, obviously. So he was very powerful. So the Babur soldiers were actually not ready to fight against these Rajput soldiers. But Finally, they fought and they won because it worked like medicine. Again, even a king like Akbar, a 1568, Akbar versus Uday Singh in Chittoor, Rajasthan. So Akbar versus Uday Singh. Uday Singh is actually son of Rana Sanga and the father of Rana Pratap. Okay, so Uday Singh, 1568. Even see, the king like Akbar also used jihad for his political purpose. So what Wahhabis did now? Wahhabis declared the war against Punjab as jihad now, and then northern part of India, they declared the war against Punjab and northern part as jihad. So northwest frontier province will come, Punjab will come, Bihar will come, Delhi will come, and after the death of Said Ahmed of Rai Bareli, the headquarter was shifted to Patna. Patna became the headquarter, and now two important leaders have emerged. These two leaders are very important: Inayat Ali and Vilayat Ali. Okay, so don't be confused with Ali brothers that we will be discussing later in Khilafat movement. Just before I told you we will discuss whether there is any connection with Khilafat movement or not. Don't be confused. This two Alis are different than the Ali brothers that we will be discussing during the Khilafat movement. So guys, then what happened? Punjab, after the second Anglo-Punjab war, Punjab was annexed by the British. So once Punjab was annexed by the British, they've already declared the war against Punjab as jihad. Now they have started confrontation directly with the company, directly with the British. So jihad continued even after the annexation also, and that is why it played a big role in the 1857 revolt, because they are already in confrontation with British after that, after the annexation. So they are already fighting, and that's why I've told you the contribution, or not, I would not say contribution. The way they fought is much organized compared to the revolt. And people like, if you remember, 1857 revolt, if you have some knowledge, Maulvi Ahmadullah, Maulvi Pir Ali, all these were Wahhabi leaders actually. Okay, so, and Wahhabis supplied arms to rebellion. They are much more armed and organized than the revolt. So many scholars believe actually that the Wahhabi movement is much more organized. You can just take it down, and the revolt was crushed in 1859 completely, the Wahhabis thing, and most Wahhabi leaders were actually arrested and hanged and sent to Andaman Nicobar Islands, right, jail. See, they were sent to the jail in Andaman Nicobar, popularly known as Sazai Kalapani. In 1872, a Pathan convict, you might be knowing when we talked about Lord Mayo, the Pathan convict Sher Ali killed Lord Mayo in Port Blair when he visited that Andaman Nicobar Islands, right? So he was a Wahhabi leader. So that itself shows the anger that the Wahhabis had against the English. Killed the Governor General, right? So what an incident it is. Like imagine that the Prime Minister of India getting killed by a convict, or a President of India is getting killed by a convict in India. Okay, so after 1857 revolt, Wahhabis were tried in Patna and Ambala, popular trials, Patna trial and Ambala trial. Patna and Ambala trial. But guys, the point is the movement did not die. Why? Because it is based on an ideology. Something which is based on an ideology, it will never die. It will continue in one or the other way. So after the revolt, Wahhabis started fighting ideologically instead of bullets and guns, because they have been defeated and many of the leaders were arrested and hanged, and the trials and all those things. So they got suppressed very badly by the state. When you're fighting against the state is always in an upper hand. So that's exactly what happened. Now you can fight ideologically. So 1868, they founded Darul Uloom. Darul Uloom, this Uloom is actually derived from the word ilm. Ilm means knowledge. Ilm means knowledge. Okay, so Darul Uloom means house of knowledge. So it was set up in Deoband, Saharanpur, UP. Founded by two Wahhabi leaders, Muhammad Qasim Nanotvi and Rashid Ahmad Gangohi. So what is the idea of the school? To teach original Islamic scriptures to the young Muslim boys. When I talk about original Islamic scriptures, it includes Quran. When it comes to Hadith, Hadith is actually books having records of Prophet Muhammad's sayings and action. And then also fiqh. Fiqh means what? Islamic jurisprudence. So that is actually the interpretation of Quran and Hadith by the scholars in medieval times. So Quran, it's the original scripture. Hadith is the book having records of Prophet Muhammad's sayings and the actions. And this is Islamic jurisprudence. And fiqh is related to the school, Hanafi school. Okay, so Indian Muslims are basically followers of Hanafi school. There are four schools are there. Hanafi school is one, and then there is Shafi school, okay, and then Hanbali school, and then Maliki school. So Indian Muslims are normally the followers of Hanafi school, and Kerala Muslims are the followers of Kerala Muslims, if you see, they are the followers of Shafi school. There was a question in Prelims, I think in 2011, Mughal rulers were the followers of which among the following school. So you should be knowing whatever facts that I'm discussing, you should have a very good knowledge. You don't know what they will ask, when they will ask, and how they will ask. I have a very good idea. And then these are the Hanafi school, Shafi school, Kerala Muslims, Hanbali school, and Maliki school. Now, these are named after whom? These are named after different scholars. These are different scholars, okay? So, Jafri school is what Shia Muslims follow. Jafri school. This is Shia. So, these four belong to Sunni Muslims. Jafri school belong to Shia. So, movement still alive both in India as well as in Pakistan, but it changed the style and shape, not with bullets and guns, but ideologically. So guys, Wahhabi movement is very important. Have an idea. When you write a question related to Islamic State, try to bring in this knowledge that you have acquired over here. Very, very important. Okay. So I'll stop here. I hope you understood whatever we have discussed. In the next session, I'll be talking about Arya Samaj.